Some years ago, when I was still in the habit of drinking all day in public spaces, I found myself in Regent's Park, just outside the zoo. It was late at night, and I deduced that my best chance of getting some kip was to hop over the fence into one of the enclosures where I could bed down on some straw, safe from interference by the vagrants in the park. I knew the lions and tigers and leopards and wolverines and whatnot were fully enclosed, so I was unlikely to be molested by a large predator, although if truth be told, I wasn't thinking all that clearly. I can't remember quite how I scaled the high perimeter fence, although drink has a way of helping you overcome obstacles of that nature. So there I was, in some sort of paddock, with a farmyard ambience and a pervasive stench of vegetative animal excrement. I found a loose pile of straw and formed it into a rough bed. I had a big coat in them days, a Yugoslavian army surplus, designed to withstand the rigours of Balkan winters, and without that I'd probably have frozen to death and been found the next morning by the keepers. As it was, I was merely very cold, and my knackers were clacking like an executive toy. But I was just beginning to drift off, soothed by the distant lowing of the llamas, the gentle whoops of the gibbons, and the digestive rumbles and gut blasts of the Indian elephants, when suddenly I heard the thunder of hooves approaching and a frantic whinnying. I looked up to see a strange vision before me, and it took a moment or two before I realised it was an okapi, that gentle and elusive forest cousin of the giraffe. Gentle, that is, in normal circumstances. This one was clearly enraged. It was rearing like a stallion and emitting that unearthly cry like a soul in torment. One of its sharply hooved feet thudded down inches from my skull, and I took that as a sign that I should make my exit. So I did, pursued by the okapi. I'd never before heard of this extreme territoriality in the okapi, and I thought briefly that there might be a scientific monograph to be written on the subject. But then I was back over the fence and decided to make my uncertain way back to my official lodgings. Now, as I staggered down the street, I realised that there was movement from within the folds of my greatcoat. Somewhat dismayed and surprised, as there had been nothing of that nature going on for quite some time, I pulled open the coat and something fell out. I picked it up and found it was a baby okapi, and I realised what must have happened. It was the new laid baby from the mother okapi who had pursued me. I considered going back and throwing it over the fence, but the alarm had been raised. A siren was blowing and searchlights were playing across the pens. Now, I couldn't afford another zoo-related offence on my record, so I scurried away, the okapi tucked back inside my coat, and under my jumper, a Fair Isle sweater I'd won in a game of chance. It was strangely comforting having the little chap there inside me jumper, and it soon settled down and went to sleep. However, by the time I'd reached my lodgings, it was dead. I had no money for a kebab, so I roasted it in the communal kitchen and ate it with some stale bread that I'd found in someone's cupboard. It was the best thing I've ever eaten, but hunger, of course, is the best sauce, and I'd had nothing inside me except for the drink all day. I'm not saying I felt good about it. and early the next morning I went back to the park to pay my respects. I stood at the railings and looked through them at the mother okapi. She was standing over the pile of straw, making a sound that was so close to human weeping that I was unmanned. She looked at me with those huge brown okapi eyes, and I stared back. And I think she knew, as she went rigid and then bared her long, ungulate teeth. I felt shame and regret and a sort of disgust at humankind for always destroying what is most gentle and most beautiful in the world. But also beneath it, I felt hunger, because once you've tasted okapi, no other meat will suffice.